Welcome to Tech Savvy. My name is Leigh Newman and I'm the Executive Director of Campus Operations here in LaGrange at the West Georgia Technical College. We have a great guest star today. He is really quite smart and very effective in his instruction in our students, and we're going to talk to him in a few minutes, but I wanted to remind you about some big events that are happening on campus. We have Tour the Tech on Tuesday, which is on the 19th, and it's a great time to, if you're thinking about maybe going to West Georgia Tech and you're just not quite sure what's available out there, then come to the campus, and we have two different sessions. We have it at 9:30 and at 5, maybe it's 9 o'clock and 5:30, and we'll be glad to give you a tour, let you meet some of our faculty, answer any of your questions that you have about our processes, and even get you started on the application process if necessary. So plan on putting that on your calendar for May the 19th. And we also have another big recruiting event, and it's May the 30th, and it's Friends and Family Day. And this is going to be an all-out fun day. We've got lots of activities for children. We're going to have a cupcake walk. We're going to have Mama Jama give out books and read stories. And we'll have even a little tiny car show with some neat cars in our parking lot. So we've got lots of other things planned on that, and so put that on your calendar so you can come out and see what we're doing out at West Georgia Tech in LaGrange. May 11th is late registration for the summer semester. May 18th, summer classes begin, and the 25th we're off. It's Memorial Day, so the college will be closed. And on June the 9th will be our first orientation for our fall semester, and this is going to be mandatory for any new students or students that haven't been there in a year. So if you have any questions or specifics you need to find out more about, our telephone number is 706-845-4323, or visit us on our website at www.westgatech.edu. So that's a lot of information, so it'd be just as easy to go to our website and see all this information on there. But please give us a call or come visit us on our site. Okay, our special guest star today. His name is Donald Miller. He is an English instructor, and he's part of our Schools of Arts and Sciences. So, Mr. Miller, tell us about yourself.
I've been teaching for about 10 years now. In the system, mostly at West Georgia Technical College. I have 2 beautiful children, wonderful wife, and...
Do you live in LaGrange?
I do. I do live in LaGrange.
Good.
So I'm locally oriented, and I kind of try to keep up with what's going on in town, and very much love my students, love my job, and...
Pretty proud of West Georgia Tech?
I am pretty proud of West Georgia Tech, of what it's accomplished, and the students that we're putting out as a product are exceptional, in my opinion.
Well, that says a lot coming from you, because I know you're one of those very strict teachers that you want to make sure your students leave with the skills that they are supposed to have to be successful in their careers and their life.
Absolutely.
Tell me how important English is. Isn't that what you're teaching, is basically English?
I teach English, grammar. It's very important. The problem is a lot of people don't think it's important. Students who tend to focus on math and things of that nature, math in their program classes, and kind of leave English on the side. But if you think about it, you use it to communicate, both in written and verbal form, every day. You're judged on your ability to handle and use and maximize your language, your vocabulary. It's also, and I tell my students this all the time, it's one of the quickest ways for people to determine your intelligence, is your command of language, how you manipulate it, and the range of your language, your vocabulary. That's one of the reasons why we're given so much vocabulary in K through 12. It helps develop your mind. And it's one of the quickest, easiest ways to assess someone's intelligence in, for instance, a hiring situation or an interview situation, where the other party wants to know right quick, how smart is this person in front of me? How can they manipulate the language? And that's one of the easiest ways to determine that.
Well, the communication skills, I mean, in order to do anything today, you have to be able to communicate. And the more effective you are at communication, the more productive you'll be, the more effective you'll be. And so what are some examples of ways that you get your students to realize that?
One example would be in my English 1010 class. I have students do real-life writing assignments. Very often students who do essays exclusively feel like this doesn't really connect to the real world. I won't write essays in the real world, and for the most part they're correct.
That's right.
We do have many students who go on for 4-year education from us, and essays are extremely applicable to them. But for the student who's going to take English 1010 and then launch off into their field classes and eventually get a job, it's not quite so germane to what they need.
Right.
So I will have them do real-life writing assignments such as a resume, a cover letter, and a request for a raise. These are real-life writing assignments that it's my firm hope all of my students will encounter at some point,
Right.
so that they can get their career going. So that right there is an example of how a real-life writing assignment comes into play in the classroom.
Right. And it's definitely something they will be using the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
I think sometimes people get intimidated by English because they think it's harder than it really is. Do you ever come across that with students?
I get intimidation mostly from students who learn English as a second language.
Oh.
They see it as extremely intimidating. English is in fact one of the hardest languages on the planet to learn. It has the largest vocabulary, it has the most rules, and some of those rules are contradictory. Situations where you will do something up until a certain point, or here's a break for the rule that I just gave you. So it can be extremely confusing, especially if a student is math oriented and used to rules being written in stone, and if I follow the rules I'll get the right answer.
Right.
And to a certain degree English does participate in that system. If you do things right you'll get the right answer, but there are exceptions to rules. More often what I encounter in native speakers of English in my classes is the idea that they think they know the rules, and often they think they have a good grip on the language, but it's not really there. It's not really correct. So because they've grown up hearing wrong structures and wrong usages their whole life.
Right.
So to them, it doesn't sound wrong.
And that's the case of a lot of different things that we encounter in technical education, is their background, their family, what they bring to the classroom, they think is right because they know no alternative. But that is your job.
Absolutely. My job is to clean out some of the cobwebs that they've accumulated over the years and get them in the right vein of using language.
I'm probably the world's worst, I call it grammar snob. My mom always corrected me growing up. She was an English teacher too, and I did it to my children. And I mean, it's just so important to me for people to use correct grammar. And if I'm interviewing someone and they use poor grammar, I almost shut off. I think, okay, let's give them another chance. But it just is so important to be able to use correct grammar.
For our students, it's incredibly important. Most of our students are not going to stay in an academic environment. They're going to go out into the real work world. They're going to have to communicate both written and verbal on a regular basis. And the higher they go, and this is one of the things I try to tell my degree level students, especially, the higher you go, the more communicating you do and the less actual doing of the work.
Production.
Right. Instead of going out and working with the patients, you're behind a desk telling people to go work with the patients.
Exactly.
So communication as you go higher in your job only becomes more important. And effective communication is the difference between a good manager and a great manager, a good head nurse, a good floor nurse, and a bad floor nurse. So this is an incredibly important concept for them to grab. I try to let them know at all points you are being judged on your grammar, whether you believe it or not, whether you like it or not, whether you think so or not. People are judging you on your usage.
I'm one of the worst judges when it comes to that. I really, it's probably bad sometimes, but anyway. Well, tell me all right, your programs, you say you teach English.
Yes.
Are you like what are your classes that you teach?
I teach a fairly broad range of classes. I tend to specialize in classes such as English 0090. That
Learning
is
support.
a learning support class where students get the basics. It is a computer-based class. It allows students to basically work at their own pace. So if students feel like they can go further than where I am in lecture in the class at the moment, they certainly can.
Can go for it.
If they need to go more slowly and work on pronouns, for instance, a little more, they can do that. So they can keep up with my lectures in class, or they can work ahead or behind as they see fit, as long as everything's done
Well,
at the
that
end.
takes away some of the intimidation, because you can walk into something and think you don't know anything, or you've got lots of issues to start off with. That solves those problems.
Exactly. It allows them to work at their own pace, whatever that pace may be. Whereas in a traditional lecture classroom, if you don't really understand something, we're moving on from it. And your chance to go back and get it would be with the tutor or with the instructor, and not really in a classroom environment.
Right.
So this does provide them, it takes a lot of pressure off and gives them the chance to truly master the material rather than simply being exposed to it and moving on.
Well, I want to hear more about that. We're at the end of our first block, so we're going to come back in a few minutes. But come back and let's hear more details about how people the intimidation factor gets removed when they come to West Georgia Tech and to learn very important communication skills. We'll see you back in a minute. Welcome back to Tech Savvy. I'm Leigh Newman, and our guest today is Donald Miller. He is our English instructor on the LaGrange campus, and this is a fascinating conversation for me because I have always heard that English can be a challenge. You think initially math is going to be hard, but the importance of English and good English is just, it's the secret to success, in my opinion.
Absolutely. It really is.
All right, well, tell me, what issues come up that like any kind of issue specific that you feel like is pretty standard? I mean, something, grammar, I know we've talked about grammar, but are there specific grammatical errors that come up that you feel like are more often than not, or that,
Yes.
that you feel like are more important than others?
Importance, probably fragments. And that's something that we focused on in our student learning outcomes in a few of our classes, is fragments. A fragment is basically, just right quick, a fragment is basically something that looks like a sentence but really isn't. It's missing one of those three necessary parts of a sentence: a subject, noun or pronoun, a verb, and expresses a complete idea. For instance, if I said, "the boy threw the ball," you get an image in your head of a boy throwing a ball, correct? So we have a subject, boy, a verb, threw, and a complete image, ball. But if I say the boy threw, you don't get the same effect, do you? That's a fragment. Fragments are extremely common in student writing, and they are terrible because they interfere with making sense. And many inexperienced people exposed to writing will forgive many sins, but not making sense is not one of those.
That's true.
It has to make sense. Misspelled words can be forgiven, but if it's gibberish, it's useless.
Yeah. Well, do you blame a lot of that on text messages and internet?
To a certain degree, yes. One of the hardest things to get students to understand is that if they want to improve their grammar in a fast way, take the interstate rather than the back roads, they have to do it constantly. That means it has to come out of their thumbs as well as their fingers and mouths.
So do it when they're texting and when they're
Absolutely.
Tweeting.
Don't text you, type Y-O-U.
Just get in the practice of it and you'll improve.
Absolutely. It's just like any other skill. Grammar is like driving. The more you do it, the more you're exposed to good grammar, the more you read, the more it's going to become more natural.
Well, that certainly helps. I think reading always is going to make a big difference in people's vocabulary and their English skills and communication skills. The more reading, the better.
Oh, absolutely.
I always told.
Absolutely.
We're going to have the Think Academy, and we're going to have some high school students on our campus starting in the fall.
I know.
What are your thoughts on dual enrollment?
Dual enrollment, I think, is a very good thing. The more that we can expose high school students, K through 12 students, to the college environment, the earlier we can do that, the better. Because it is a strong culture shock moving from the K through 12 environment to the college environment, both at the technical college level and at the four-year college level. There's a lot more responsibility put on the student. For many students, the possibility of failure now becomes suddenly real. Many students who have done exceptionally well in high school struggle in college, partly because the responsibility is now on them. They don't have infinite retakes for a test. They can't turn in homework late. These may have been things that they did in high school without any repercussion whatsoever, but in college it can get very serious very quickly if you engage in those things, depending on the instructor and depending on the program.
I think that probably is the greatest value of dual enrollment. We'll put students in your class.
Right.
They'll be sitting in between traditional students, and they'll see mature behavior in most cases.
In most cases,
In most
they will.
cases, but they will feel the college environment and understand the seriousness, and I think in turn they will learn over that period of time the importance of being, focused on your classes and making sure you get things done. But they'll see it set, the example is set by those around them.
Absolutely. The traditional students tend to lead the class, and then the dual enrollment students see, they observe, they understand at this point what they're moving towards, and the skill and drive and determination they need to get there.
Have you had students that were in your dual enrollment class and then came to you after they graduated from high school?
Absolutely, I have.
Well, tell me about it. I'd love to know the success or the failure or the strengths and the weaknesses of that.
It's been overwhelmingly positive. I have had students come to me from the dual enrollment environment, for instance, in an 1101 class, which is a basic essay writing class. They liked the way I taught. They liked the style of my teaching. So they stuck with me when they graduated and came to me for 1102, which is a literature class. And I was thrilled to see them, happy to see them move forward. And then some of those students have gone on to do quite marvelous things. Some of them have started up their own businesses. They've gone on for four-year degrees. And they've told me in emails and letters afterwards, your class pushed me to achieve at the level that was required of me at UGA or Auburn or Columbus State.
Aren't you proud?
I'm extremely proud. I'm incredibly proud. I've had Army jump masters as students. I have had I've had veterans. I've had all of a wide diversity of students, and they've all gone to achieve great things.
Well, it's because they were taught to communicate properly.
I like to think so.
I bet it.
I
would bet on that. I would bet on that. But so you feel like that your students that start off in dual enrollment probably have a leg up on those that don't in college level?
Certainly. They know what they're coming into. Their eyes are wide open, whereas students who come straight from high school who haven't had the dual enrollment experience often can struggle. It's not certain that they will, but I do see a higher percentage of students who haven't been through dual enrollment get hit more with the culture shock of the college environment, and they're not quite as ready for the challenges.
And then the major benefit of everything, first of all, our cost is a whole lot less. And for dual enrollment students coming up, it's not going to cost them anything.
It's very true. That's remarkable.
Major. And when they go to University of Georgia, or
as someone with a lot of student loans,
I do too.
It's remarkable.
I
it
know,
really
it's
is.
awesome. And then they're going to go to college, and they're going to already have their English 101 or 1101 or 1102 or whatever they're supposed to take. They don't have to worry about that.
Not a bit.
And I remember very well when I went to University of Georgia that first year, and I went to that 101 class. There had to be 900 people in that class. It was so overwhelming. But see, we get it done. We'll allow the students to get it done in the summertime in a small environment. And
better instruction, smaller environment always leads to better instruction.
Right.
It leads to more one-on-one time with your instructor. It leads to better problem solving, troubleshooting if you're having difficulty in the class. They're getting a quality education with us. They really are. It is at, and in some cases I like to think above, the levels that they would get at some of the four-year institutions.
Well, I mean, we have to meet the same standards.
Absolutely.
So
these credits are transferable, so we have to meet the rigor and quality
of the standards that
of
all
these four-year
university
schools.
system. So I'm just so proud to be able to be a part of all that, because I wish my children had come up in that area and had that option. Of course, they're older than that now, but all right, and this is a tough question probably, but technical education is hands-on training. That's what our motto is, kind of. Well, of course, the fact that you teach learning support classes and general education classes, those are mostly going to go to people that are going to a four-year college, right?
I teach all levels, actually. Some of our courses, like English 1101 and 1102, are focused on students who are getting a degree or transferring to a four-year school.
Right.
Classes like English 1010 are focused more on business students who that will be the end of the road for them. That English class will be the last English class they take, and then it will move them forward into their program. So we really do pitch the classes to the need of the student.
Right.
The content covered, the requirements, the standards are custom fit for what the student needs.
For the short term, as in the certificate program or something like that, as
Absolutely.
compared to the degree or the
Yes.
diploma. And then, like you said initially, that you've got the hands-on exercises, which would be things that they would be able to use in
Yes.
real life, like
The resume, the cover letter, the raise request, these are all real things that I sincerely hope our students will do. They'll go out there, they'll get a job with that resume, they'll get a job with that cover letter, they'll get the raise with the raise request, because we taught them how to make that happen.
well, it's going to be our fault, or it's going to be it's our accomplishment too.
Absolutely, we take a part
And
of
I
that.
think too, like we talked about earlier, it's important to teach the students when they're writing their resume to sell themselves, because I don't feel like a lot of times they put down everything they can that they've done.
Right.
I mean, the team skills that they learn if they play football or baseball or a cheerleader, the problem-solving skills that they learned in projects that they did. I mean, all those things are so valuable to employers today. They just need to make sure they're putting it in the resume.
Oh yes, I think part of it is our Southern culture. Most of our students are from the South, and in the South we're taught not to toot your own horn and not to act too proud and things like that. And it runs counter to what you're supposed to do in a resume, which is precisely the thing. You're supposed to toot your horn. You're supposed to say that you're the greatest thing since sliced bread to a certain degree. So part of what I do in my classes is try to get them to realize some of the stuff that they do in school, the team building, the problem solving, time management. These are things that are worth putting on a resume. Also some of the things that they do in their personal lives. Are they involved in any clubs? Oh, I'm in 4-H, or I'm in this. That's valuable. That's useful. You learn leadership skills in these areas.
That is so important to cover with students, because they don't understand it, because they've never been on the other side of the desk when they're interviewing. Well, Mr. Miller, this has been a lot of fun having you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Will you come back and visit us again and give
Absolutely,
us Chapter 2,
Oh yes.
English at West Georgia Tech?
Whatever you want to know.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here. And thank you for joining us on today's episode of Tech Savvy. We have lots of great things going on, and we've got a lot of great people doing it out at West Georgia Tech. So plan on coming to visit with us soon. And we hope to see you next time on Tech Savvy.